Everyone, welcome back to another episode of SEO from home. I am your host, Ben Jacobson with Page One Power. We're out of Boise, Idaho, and we're super excited to be back with another episode. And we're joined today by Dr. Pete Meyers from Moz. You guys know him as the marketing scientist over there. And we're going to be doing kind of a more loose, open format AMA today. For those of you who haven't seen SEO from home in the past, this is kind of our webinar series that we've been doing during lockdown and during these kind of just altered working circumstances to kind of keep the SEO community connected, being able to share out some ideas and some interesting thoughts and hopefully some actionable information that you guys can do to help increase your SEO today. So we're super excited to have you guys with us here. We're going to be recording today's episode as always. We try to have these up in about 24 to 48 hours after we finish recording, so you guys can check those out later if you missed it or you had to step out for any reason. So we're also going to be live tweeting today, so if you guys want to participate that way, you can do that. That's at Page One Power on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag SEO from home. That being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We really encourage you guys to ask any questions that you guys have for us. Our general kind of jumping off point today is going to be analyzing traffic losses and trying to understand kind of what causes those and how those come to be. So Dr. Pete, starting off, the first question that we had here, you recently wrote a post on how to assess why traffic is falling, whether it's Google, something you did, or external forces such as COVID-19. Can you explain a little bit more about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Ben, and thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
It's tough. It's tough right now because if you follow SERPs at all and kind of rank tracking, it's all over the place since the start of COVID because there's just these massive changes in search behavior. So I walked through a process that I think is generally relevant, but I think it's especially important now because we just see massive movement and it's hard to compare some of our historical numbers, you know, when we say, oh, this went way up since yesterday, what's going on? It's like, well, it's been going way up for 3 months. So we don't know if that means anything. So I think that's always the first step. Like, you know, there's always a local minima. Things go up, things go down. And if you see that traffic is down over last week, you know, I think if you've been in this game long enough, you know that doesn't mean a whole lot. So, you know, the first step is always to look at that longer term trend.
Sure.
Look at seasonality in GA, that's a big one. You know, so I think especially people that are new to an organization, sometimes it's obvious and people go, yeah, we know that, like Christmas, things change, whatever, we're in retail. You know, when you're new to an org or when you're changing industries, you may not have a good sense for what their peaks and valleys over time look like, and there may be surprises. So that year-over-year data can be a big help. But then I don't want to reiterate the whole post, but I think a lot of the process is trying to figure out, is this normal outside of me? You know, it's easy to track down and say, well, okay, I know this isn't normal for my history. I know this is way different than the last 90 days. I know this is search. You know, this isn't just some fluke in some tiny area or some fluke of a single page. But when you start to dig in and go, all right, what's happening in my industry? What's happening to these keywords in terms of trends? You know, looking at something like Google Trends, is this unusual for that niche in general? And then digging into what Google shows you, are my impressions changing? You know, that's a big one. My final clicks, my final traffic, that could be change I made to the site, could be some impact of my headlines on CTR. But if that overall impression number is really diving or really increasing, something's happening before people even really get to my site. Something's happening I didn't do. So looking at that big picture of the industry, Google, way beyond your own traffic, I think is really important. I would say that as much as I do track the algo right now, in lieu of like a named update, we think something happened maybe today or yesterday, or something like the May core update, it's a mess, you know. So we don't look at that and go, oh, Mozcast is high, that explains it. It's like, you know what, March, April, May, no, that's not telling you a whole lot. And frankly, that COVID timeline, that March 11th pandemic announcement, is a pretty good indicator for a lot of sites. Like that was really about when people started to take this seriously and change their search behavior and change their consumer behavior. So that general timeline tells us quite a bit. And it can be a correlation sometimes, but if you see, hey, within that week after March 11th, by mid-March, I saw a big movement, odds are pretty good that that shift had something to do with it. And you have to figure out where those people went.
Yeah. And I mean, with especially, I think that in our current circumstances, I think there's such a wide number of different variables that could be playing into that traffic change, just in the simple fact of how the industry is shaping up, how the world itself is shaping up, and how people's searching behaviors are changing.
Everybody's just doing everything differently,
entirely,
which is massive. And there have been some articles even about how, I don't want to speculate too much on how that feeds the algo, but I absolutely think that it at least feeds into training the machine to some extent. But there's been a bunch of articles about how machine learning systems, they have no idea how to handle this. We've seen that in trend projection systems. Like, these trends and this data is so weird that it's breaking intelligence systems. It's breaking expensive expensive software, and it doesn't know what to do. And there's a lot of that in the algorithm right now. So it's pretty crazy.
What are your top takeaways from the May core algorithm update? Do you see like anything in particular as like winners versus losers, or?
Yeah, it was funny. I went through sort of 3 new ways to analyze the winners and losers, and then they all said something different. And you know how it is. It's like, I think the big thing is things change a lot, and so you never want to look at like that 1 day or 2 day window and go, oh, this is what happened. And it was funny with the May core update that like day 2 and day 1 were wildly different. So something really strange happened, and I can't tell you what. I think an interesting trend to me, and it is speculative, but for instance, we saw Google Play and the Apple App Store make big jumps. And there's a bunch of patterns that are hard to explain away as anything but changes in behavior in March and April. Mm-hmm. And so I really do wonder if either Google knew they had to make some shifts, if they proactively said, wow, the algorithm is not handling this well, we need to make some changes, or if that data fed the retraining. And I think there's a retraining aspect to core updates, part of it because, Google tells us, hey, if you saw something happen during core update, you may not recover till the next core update. That's a really vague statement. That suggests that there's some kind of data or input or something they're doing that isn't reflected in the day-to-day algo, right? And so I do think there's a retraining that happens, and I don't think user behavior, I won't even say this, I'm not going to claim user behavior changes rankings in real time.
Sure.
I'll say it that way. But I find it nearly impossible to believe at this point that user behavior in some form isn't used to train the ML aspects of the algorithm. So there's just a lot of trends that look like industries you expect to have been affected by COVID changed dramatically in May. But then it gets weird because like a big loser was Spotify's direct song links, which you would think maybe a whole lot of people, like more people would be home listening to Spotify, but then did the increase in Google Play and the App Store basically knock them down for some reason? Did something change on their site? If you looked at one day, you'd see LinkedIn had a huge drop. Well, LinkedIn de-indexed half their site. So we have to be careful. Things happen that have nothing to do with the algo update.
Yeah, it also almost feels like you have to, I don't know, at least to me, I feel like every time that there's the updates, you almost have to let it steep for a little while to actually let the dust settle and figure out where those changes are actually going to take effect. Just like you were saying, you might not see the changes until the next update. I mean, I think that has to be, I would imagine it's got to be doing some sort of retraining on their end.
It can't just be seeing your new content, right? Like we know if you change the content and you're a decent sized site, Google's going to see that pretty fast, right? So yeah, it's more than that.
So as you're going through and as you're tracking a lot of these updates and the changes that are happening, like what important information are you gleaning by monitoring these things? What sort of like actionable information are we able to learn from being able to monitor these updates?
I wish I knew some days. I think the most important thing generally for people is just that gauge of, is this just me or is it Google? Is this
Mhm.
something I did or is it affecting broader people? I think that's probably the most useful thing right now. In terms of causality, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for a long time now, and it's really hard to look at site level, domain level, or page level. I won't say page level, but just at URLs and at root domains and at keywords and explain why the algo did what it did or what you should do to fix that. You really can't see that from the keywords themselves. You can't even really see that from the winners and losers. You can start to look for patterns. So I think we're starting to get more complex about, hey, what do these pages have in common, right? What's going on here? What's the pattern? Because it's not just the same domains, or it's not just happening on this really, really broad scale. And a lot of times I think, and again, I don't want to overgeneralize what ML does, but I think one of the things about shifting away from a purely heuristic, humans writing the rules algorithm also meant within the last couple of years that the ranking factors are diverging across industries. There's not just one core set. If people had to write those, they wouldn't write one for every industry. But if machines write those rules, and some of those rules, I think that we're seeing more divergence across industries. So, seeing that overall number, it can be useful for validation, but I don't think it tells us why. And the why is extremely difficult. And that's part of why we got into tracking things like intent, things like SERP features. SERP features are, at least now, not when they first launched, but now are really closely tied to intent. And so if you see something like, hey, you know what, a bunch of videos are showing up now that weren't before, you can start to see how Google is changing its thinking about that query or that set of queries.
Sure.
To me right now, I think that's a lot more interesting because it's a lot more actionable to know that there was that big shift, or that there, even within a single high volume query, that suddenly it went from commercial to informational, or something happened to make them rethink what that meant and what's going on. So I think we have to be a lot more granular. And it's not just, oh, these are my 10 keywords, these are the ones I get all my traffic from. And then you look and you're putting out all this blog content and half the page is ads, or vice versa, where it's like, look, what you're doing doesn't make sense tactically. So I think that's a lot of it. But now we have to add on that layer of everybody who is searching for hair salon or barbershop isn't going there. So now, now there's also a shift of maybe they're looking up how to cut their own hair. So that intent, now it's intent, not just at Google scale, but at like the global scale, how we're thinking about keywords, it's really different. And we don't have, I'm talking about that from USCon. Honestly, we don't have the tools to do that for the most part.
Sure. And it is really interesting to see the difference in intent specifically. I've seen a couple articles around where it talks specifically about how the example that you just used of barbershop is like so perfect, because it's a changing in what your outcome is based on like the same general principle that you're searching for. So haircut is drastically different right now than it was 6 months ago.
Right, right.
And
if you're watching, I think what's interesting to me is if you're a barbershop and you're watching queries for like haircut near me or barbershop, you're seeing everything go down. And at the same time, how to cut your own hair and hair clippers and all these other queries are going way up. And I don't want to undermine, the people who are in that situation. That doesn't magically save you. But if you're just tracking these things and they're dropping, you're not seeing the things that are increasing because the demand's still there. It's being translated into something different. It's being adapted. And that's a situation I don't think we SEOs are generally equipped to handle. But if we learn to do it, it's really powerful. If we learn to track the thing we didn't know we needed to track or see the trends that are going up, that's a lot more important than knowing that, look, these few vanity keywords are falling, everything's falling apart. It's like, no, somebody's doing something.
Yeah.
So find that and make sure, you know, and I don't think that means we don't track rankings, but I think it means we need a broad view. We need to kind of let go of our egos. We need to be re-examining it all the time. You know, we always need to be finding the new trends and the new keywords and the new questions and letting that evolve as we go. And you don't just pick 50 keywords and sit on it for 5 years because you're missing a
Yeah,
huge part of the picture.
entirely. And I mean, it goes back to the idea that one of the most important things to have is like knowing the right questions to ask. And if you're not able to monitor, you're not looking with a broad enough view to where you're seeing the full scope of where that search has shifted to. Whether, I mean, people, relating back to that example again, people still need haircuts. Like the shift isn't in the demand and the shift isn't in, you know, the search. They're still searching, but the intent has changed. And so being able to understand like where that traffic has gone to, where that's been rerouted to, I think is insanely important. What would you say, as we're seeing like these massive rapid changes in search data and how people are doing this, what advice would you give to SEOs to make themselves or their websites able to adapt better to the rapidly changing like searching environment?
I think it's really tough. From a local perspective, you know, there's no magic. If your business was shut down for 2 months or is still shut down, I don't want to sit here and make it sound like there's some little SEO trick you can do to deal with the fact that you can't take customers. I think in that case, a lot of it really just comes down to, I think for everybody, still being relevant, still being out there. So if you're open and you're taking curbside, for example, just that people know you're still open, because even if they don't come, they might think you cease to exist. You know, you don't want to shut down that site. You don't want to shut down. And I've heard people ask, you know, a friend of mine asked me like, well, we really want to, basically my boss wants to make sure we're still getting exposure, but we're cutting our content budget and we're cutting our paid search budget and we're cutting our social budget. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, because I understand that the money's not there. But I do think there's a real concern I have right now that people could just forget about you, you know, that they think you've gone away, that they think you've gone out of business, even if you haven't. And so I think just to put out enough, to be active enough, maybe you have to scale back and totally get that, but to be active enough to people, let people know you're still there. I think to shift tent when it's necessary, there might be things you can't sell right now or things that you're out of. And maybe it's time to switch to some informational content that's a little higher funnel, but just keeps people engaged and keeps them talking. You know, even if you're a barbershop, things like how to cut your bangs and stuff, you might look at that and go, and you're going to have to get pretty long tail or go admittedly, but you know, you may look at that and think, well, I'm not going to make any business out of that, but just showing people that you're still out there, you're still trying to take care of them so that as things improve, they come back. You know, I think that's really critical, and it's not going to be easy. For e-commerce and such, I think trend tracking, you know, trying to find those peaks when, you know, if you're just focusing on the valleys and like our sales are down, anything you can do to find those peaks. And I'm working on some of that right now, but that's a lot of work. You know, that's even things like Twitter, really diving in and seeing like, hey, what are people talking about? What if we knew people wanted a hand sanitizer a week before everybody else? You know, what if we could see the kind of trends that people are hitting now that they've been in the office for 3 months? And, you know, it's not always obvious. I was just joking with you before we started that I've got the setup for MozCon Live still. So I've got the ring lights and the drop curtain and everything. And I look up the ring lights on Amazon and I see they're like $40, $50. I'm like, oh man, I think I might get a pair of those. You know, exactly. This is not something I would have ever considered. Even I've worked from home for 10 years, but before I was taking all my calls and doing all of this at home, I wouldn't have even thought of that. And so like, what's the market for like home studios, you know, for people who are in Zoom all the time? Yeah, I'm not going to build a video studio, but for $200, I could get an okay setup. So I think there's a lot of stuff like that if you're not looking for it, you're missing a huge turn. There was a stat, May over May e-commerce, according to Adobe, is up like 70% over last year.
Whoa, really?
May 2020 e-commerce is above holidays 2019.
Oh, wow. That's
Now that's
crazy.
coming out of brick and mortar, right? So I don't want to
Sure.
be unempathetic that that's coming from somewhere else. But there's massive, if you're in the e-commerce business at all, there's massive spend. So where'd it go? You know, if you just sit there going, all my numbers are down, it went somewhere. So,
Yeah.
you know, learning to find that. And I think that's post-COVID too. I think that's powerful. You know, the world changes. And if we can stay ahead of it and know that this is the trend that's coming or this is what people want and see that before other people, that's a tool that will serve us for the rest of our careers. So
I
I hope
think
it
it's
makes us think
even,
differently.
yeah, I mean, I think it's even helping provide as a maybe unfortunate kind of learning lesson from a website perspective through that lens of, hey, like having blog content on there that's diversified, that has, you know, top funnel and bottom funnel,
Yeah.
like again, relating back to the barbershop, like having something that is informational. Sure, you're not going to book a lot of appointments out of that, but at least you're establishing yourself as an authority inside that space, and you're continuing to let your customers know that, hey, even though that I can't help you personally one-to-one, like there's still benefit that I'm providing there. And I think that
And
that can be
engaging,
massively powerful.
and it's a perfect time to engage with the community too. You know, some of the best local SEOs I know are people who really do that great research content about their communities and get to know their communities and talk about them and are involved. And this is a perfect time to do that and show that, like, hey, I'm part of this community. My business. I remember we lived by a Bloomer chocolate factory in Chicago. And it's an old business, but it was an area where the condos were starting to creep in to kind of a industrial area. And we had neighbors who would complain, like literally would complain about the chocolate smell. Like our neighborhood smells like chocolate. You can tell what kind
Horrible.
of neighbors we had. Yeah, what a horrible thing. And you know, they started to send out these letters that were basically like, hey, we've gotten complaints, you know, this is what we're working on, but we're a family-owned business. Let us tell you about our history. It was really effective in the sense of just like, hey, remember we're people too, and we're part of this community. And you know, I think that can be a really powerful message right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
entirely.
I don't know why anyone wouldn't like the smell of chocolate.
It sounds like an Onion article title or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little
Local person complains
strange.
about smell of chocolate. Yeah.
I also think though that, and this, you know, this is a great example, and we're doing some things. This is a really great time right now to experiment with formats. Like
Totally.
I'm not good at video. I'm not an AV guy at all. And so like we're trying to do Whiteboard Friday at home, and I'm setting up equipment I've never seen. But to be honest, we've been kind of arguing about this for like 3 years. Like we can't just do this in the office studio because so many of us are remote. And it's like, well, it won't be professional, blah, 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 you know, it won't be this. And now it's like, hey, you know what? People are pretty forgiving right now. Like people
Yeah.
don't care that and if my curtain were down, it's just like a pile of Legos and whatever my kids is strewing over like it looks so much worse than most people's offices. And that's fine right now, right? Like
Yeah,
if your
entirely.
quality's not perfect, I think this is a really great time to try some podcasting, try some video, try some other formats that maybe aren't quite at the budget or level that you would ideally want, because
Sure.
people are pretty cool with that right now. So
Yeah, and
experiment.
I think that's something that we were latching onto really early, is like, okay, well, we got to shift something, and I mean that's why we're here now doing this, is just literally is just for that reason. It's, you know, it's not the most perfect production value. Like I've spent more than half my life as a photographer, so video and picture quality is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. But even that being said, like this is like my regular day to day now, and like it's like everyone's cool with it. Like things happen, and it's just, I think, really beneficial
We've
to
all
be.
been home. We all tried to cut our own hair. You know?
Oh yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Yeah. So it looks like we did get a question that just popped through. Norm asks, when seeking trend data and topics to cover questions to answer, how do you balance between predicting what people will want to read and telling people what you want them to read? In other words, how do you predict people's interests rather than trying to force them to engage in content that serves your own interests? Excellent question.
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. That's something I deal with on the product side a lot. We built a beta for SERP feature tracking, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and found out nobody wanted it because nobody knew about SERP features or cared. And it was humbling because we were always fighting this battle of, we can't just wait for what's coming. You know, I think especially in SEO, like as an SEO, as a SaaS tool, we can't just wait for things to happen and the shoe to drop and then go, oh, we better build a tool. Like we have to be ahead of Google, but our customers are often 3 or 4 years kind of behind where they should be, honestly. And so there is that balancing act of, you don't want to come down from the mountaintop and be preachy and like, you have to do this. So there is an education process and a guiding process. I think the other part of that question, though, that's maybe relevant to a broader audience is that top of funnel, bottom of funnel. I think we get really obsessed with keywords that convert and pages that convert and drive the bottom line. And that absolutely makes sense in the sense of, yes, we're trying to make money.
Sure.
But at the same time, like the keywords that drive the bottom line and the pages that drive the bottom line that have these massive conversion rates, they don't tend to be real popular. They don't tend to have a lot of traffic. They don't tend to have broad appeal. And so I do think, like you were saying before, this ability to move across the funnel, don't get obsessed. You know, we have a tendency as marketers to be obsessed with top of funnel viral stuff. I think that's a mistake. But I think it's also a mistake to be so obsessed with the bottom of the funnel that anything that doesn't have, you know, a 10 or 20% conversion rate we view as valueless. And there's a real necessity. We found at Moz a couple of years ago that our sale was like a 3 or 4 touch point sale. And a touch point might be a blog post, or it might be the beginner's guide that has terrible conversion, but is getting them to see the brand and trust it and come back and do the higher converting activities. So I'm looking more and more at kind of mid-funnel stuff. I think there's value in that research of and we see Google doing this. We see Google taking broad queries and they don't put ads on them. And so I type in like refrigerator, I'll give you an example. And there's generally not ads on these really broad queries, but it'll say like brands and types. And you click on a brand, and then the brand is going to show you a carousel with product-specific models. And you click on the models or the colors, and you drill down to where the ads are, because they know those ads are going to convert a lot better. And I see Google pushing us down the funnel. I think we have to do that. We have to start building that funnel, cross-funnel content that's like, look, here's the information that gets you to trust us and come to us and has wide appeal. And here's how you'd implement that, or here's what you do. Oh, and by the way, what we do happens to serve that need. I think that's really important. It's difficult, but I think if you focus on one part of that, I think you're going to miss out, you know.
Entirely. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. I mean, it has to almost be like a happy marriage of the two in order to make it feel and be natural. I think we're quick to be able to spot where it feels kind of unnatural. A couple more questions coming in here. Jason says, I've been monitoring my clients' rankings in Moz campaign trackers, and I've noticed that desktop rankings are about the same as my mobile rankings. Are about the same, but my mobile rankings have dipped considerably. Any ideas on why this is?
That's hard. We've definitely seen a huge shift in consumer behavior around just which devices they're using right now. So we are seeing some of that, but I'm finding it's really industry dependent. If happy to, if you want to ping me on Twitter, I'd be curious what your industry is or whatever you can tell me, because I'm finding that really specific. I am finding, though, that frankly, I think there's a big shift because we're not picking up our mobiles and it's screwing up the data. My Google Fi bill was $3 or something last month. I was like, I have not used my phone off of Wi-Fi, you know, like, and I really wonder what that's doing to the data. Like, Google has pushed so far to mobile in terms of mobile first design and all these things, and now it's like
it's definitely unprecedented.
Completely changing what we're doing and almost like backtracking. So I think that's driving some systems nuts.
Interesting.
And we could be wrong. So let me make sure we're not wrong.
Also true.
let
Always got to
me
leave
double
that
check that. I'd be happy
caveat.
to make sure. Yeah.
Let's see, another one popping in. Have you guys seen a depreciation of contextual association between related keyword phrases since May 5th? For example, a client used to rank well for a firewall analyzer based on the strength of keyword analysis. Now that isn't the case. It seems like in some situations, Google has tightened the focus on what ranks for specific keywords.
The short answer is a little, but I don't know why or what. We've seen it in some contexts, and I've definitely seen a little bit in healthcare where it seems like they're getting narrower, or like you say, they're kind of tightening the window. But it's so hard to measure at scale that it's all anecdotes right now. It does seem like there have been some shifts, but we don't have a good way to measure that yet. I'm curious if they're, are they relating for less related terms? Are they ranking for less related terms, or they've just dropped on that term entirely? Like, I'll wait for a drop. Oh,
Dropped.
okay. That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, I'd be curious to look. Yeah, again, anecdotally, I've seen some of that, but I wish I had a way to measure it at scale.
Another question, Jared is asking, piggybacking off of a previous question, I've often had situations where brands create a, quote, thing that no one is searching for, and they want us to optimize for that thing. For example, what if Apple came up with the Apple tie, EIE, but they only wanted to use their website to build awareness for the Apple tie? Is that possible?
Is it possible? If you're Apple, sure. Is it crazy hard? Yeah. I mean, I think that's, now you're leaving search marketing for brand awareness and broader marketing. And I think the challenge is you have to create that awareness. And I don't know that search, paid or organic, is all that great at that. We can't create terms that no one uses without spending the money and the time to do that. So I do think that's a realistic conversation we have to have with clients sometimes. Like, hey, this thing you named your new product, that's cool. Nobody cares. And that might mean showing them the trend data and showing them the things that nobody cares. I'm going to talk about at MozCon. I hate to ruin my anecdote because I love this one, but if you're Disney Plus and you were like, we got to market the child, and then everybody else is talking about Baby Yoda, maybe you should talk about Baby Yoda because that's what everybody decided to call it, right? like stop being pedantic and go where the people went, because there's a whole lot of money you're missing out on.
Yeah, and it's trying to shoehorn something in that just isn't
naturally
fitting.
A lot of times that's ego and sunk cost fallacies too. Like,
also true.
The amount of money people spend on a rebrand versus just actual marketing sometimes drives you crazy.
Ready, fire, aim. Another question came in. Andrew asks, do you have any thoughts on the implementation of Web Core Vitals into Google's search algorithm? And what is the number one thing that you would advise a site owner to work on now to prepare for its integration? Excellent question.
Yeah, so I'm of two minds. One is that I think all the pieces of Web Core Vitals are generally good. I think those are things that are good for users, and they're generally going to speed up your site and make it more usable. If you are not purely an impression-based business and you're trying to sell things, I think those are good improvements to make no matter what Google does. I like that Google's being specific. I mean, it isn't just like make your site faster. They're really drilling down to these details. What should you focus on? I mean, focus on the things that you're bad at. I was on CNN the other day, and they've Taboola, or what do you call those? The related stories. I hope no one from that company is here. They're getting crazy. Like the footer was 50 times the length of the page because it was infinite scrolling the ads at the bottom. Somebody's telling me Taboola. All right. And there's just some stuff like that I think the Core Vitals, like that whole changing page factor. If you're not doing that, who cares? Don't worry about it, right? But if you have ads popping up and moving, and yeah, I think that's going to get hit, right? So look at what you're especially bad at. I will say this. I think this is purely my opinion, but I think that this update is going to be a little bit like the HTTPS update. I think Google is pre-announcing it, because pre-announcing that they're going to make a ranking change causes more change than the actual ranking update. They've proven that was effective. Even before the HTTPS update, putting that fear in people got them to change their sites. And so I think that's their primary goal. I don't think the first update will be that big, except for the worst cases. I think they're going to hit the hardest, the really obvious exploitative bad experience cases. I don't think the average site's going to be hit that hard. So I wouldn't panic about the first update. But I think it's generally good stuff. I mean, it's generally things that should help you. So pick what you're bad at, pick what's not going to be crazy expensive, and yeah, it's worth moving that way. But I wouldn't be like, oh my God, we have to do all these things or else the hammer's going to come down. Not in round one. That's my prediction. I'll go into hiding if I may have to go into hiding if I'm wrong about that.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully no one has to nuke their site and start over.
I mean, hiding anywhere right now, I guess. So what's it going to matter?
We're all basically
living in my office no matter what. So
another question here. Since Google announced in January that they would no longer give websites who rank in the featured snippet an additional placement in the organic results, have you guys noticed any trends, negative or positive, with click-through rates or organic traffic for pages that rank as the snippet?
Yeah, it's really hard to compare. Yes, we noticed changes in organic traffic because instead of 2 places to click, now you've only got 1. So absolutely, there were some changes. I think I have had a really hard time with the CTR studies, including the ones we've done internally and one that we didn't publish, because the before numbers are really messy. When you had 2 links, there's almost no way in any of the data available to anyone, this is not a Moz question or jump shot or anything else that we've used in the past, whether you're using GSC or you're using clickstream data, there's almost no way to distinguish where the click was. And so we don't know on that old data before the change whether people were clicking on the snippet link or the organic link.
Interesting.
So it's been very hard to compare. I'm also generally of the opinion that featured snippets vary, well, and not just of the opinion, I mean, we see this, they vary wildly. And so the kind of snippets that give away an answer and you're done are lousy for CTR, right?
Sure.
If it's right there and you're done, they're terrible. The kind of snippets that naturally lead people to wonder more, or that are lists that have 5, but the list is 50, or that are 1/4 of a recipe, you're never going to make 1/4 of a recipe, have great click-through, and it's great to be in that box. And so I think we need to get away from this mentality of like, are featured snippets good or bad? Some featured snippets are good and some featured snippets are bad. And I think the dividing line is basically like, do they answer the question in such a way that no one needs to know anything else? And if they do, that's not very good content to target anyway. If it's that easy, if it's knowledge graph stuff, how old is whoever, don't write a page about that in 2020. When is Mother's Day? Don't write a page about that. What time is it in Kazakhstan? You're done. That's not a site anymore. Sucks. That's what you did, but move on.
Sure.
But, hard questions that how to set up my home theater lighting or my studio lighting, that's not going to be 5 bullet points. I'm like into my 8th page of instructions just for the lights. That's a good thing to have a featured snippet for, because if you got a couple lines that make you look credible, people are going to click. They're going to go there.
Yeah, it's almost another form of optimizing for the snippet in the best capacity that you can, as much as that's kind of difficult to do. But being able to provide enough in-depth information that you're answering the question, but also providing additional reading is.
And I also think, why are you getting snippets? You're getting snippets because, let's put aside whether Google is always good at this or not. You're getting snippets because you're ranking, you're on page 1, and they think you're relevant to the question. To not get a snippet either means using the new tags that kind of block part of your content in weird ways, or de-optimizing. I don't think you should ever de-optimize unless you're going to be sued. You know, if your page being up there means you're going to go to court, then block that page, you know, right? But if you're worried that the featured snippet is going to cost you clicks, so you decide to make it so you rank 7th instead of 1st.
Sure.
Well, you just cost yourself a lot of clicks for the fear of costing yourself clicks. So I don't understand that. Like, leave it alone. Focus on the ones that work. Leave the rest alone.
Another question came in here. In the modern search ecosystem, how much of a ranking factor do you feel comes down to sheer inertia, meaning pages and sites ranking well for competitive terms because they've been ranking well for so long that they already are a self-perpetuating SERP? Sorry, hopefully I read that okay. I feel like
I hesitate to say what the factors would be, but I think if it's evergreen type content, then certainly, yeah. You know, we see pages that just perform well for a really long time. And I think because the signals keep coming, right? And let's not say it's because they get a lot of traffic, but signals are correlated, right? A page that gets a lot of traffic, still gets social shares. If it gets social shares, somebody's going to link to it. And then it's going to get more traffic and more shares and more links and more mentions and more unlinked mentions. Whatever the factors are, those pages tend to perpetuate more factors over time. So I wouldn't look at it as, it's nothing as simple as domain age or page age or anything like that. But something like the algo history that I work on still generates hundreds of visits a day, does really great in search because those hundreds of visits turn into more links and more mentions and more, more things. So is there a power to that? Absolutely. It's not for everything. Some things aren't evergreen. Some things Google is going to reward recency. They're going to reward newsworthy content and QDS, you know, as we used to say, and they're going to want to see fresh content and newer stuff. Sometimes they're going to look at accuracy and they might change how they view that. We still don't really know, but they might say, you know what, this source doesn't seem trustworthy anymore. This topic has changed enough that we need something, not typical news content, but just they have a shift in their thinking. But generally speaking, I think evergreen content's really powerful because it's always just generating new signals. I don't think there's a flag anywhere that says, keep this ranking forever. But it is self-perpetuating. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So that's all the questions that I'm seeing that we have come in. We're getting close to wrapping up. I know they've been bringing some heaters.
That's smart people going in today.
So we're about 11:45 here. So we're getting close to wrapping up. So if you guys have any additional questions, be sure to pop those in now so we can get to those. As we're kind of wrapping things up, again, I just wanted to mention we are recording today's episode. So if you had to step out or if you need to revisit, I noticed a couple people in the comments said that they're just going to send this to clients whenever they ask about something. So if you guys need a link to this or anything in the future, just you can visit our website, Page One Power, or on our YouTube channel. We'll have those up usually about 48 hours.
I'm eager to see what I get blamed for later.
Hopefully nothing, right?
I mean, no, it's fine. No, it's all good.
Cool.
Somebody's mad at me for good reason. It's fine.
Well, at least they're talking about you, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, it looks like we're kind of wrapping up. If you guys have any more questions, we'll leave it open for just a couple more minutes here. Let's see.
I'm gonna, I'll throw something out there. We were talking about the trends, and I've been digging into this. If you haven't checked it out, I'm going to hopefully go into more detail at actually Moscone Virtual, but on Google Trends, go down. They've made some big improvements to the related topics and the related queries. And there's a lot of cool stuff where if you look at a trend like Zoom and you go, okay, it's up, whatever. Like I knew that, I knew that. And correlation is not causation, but yeah, it's causation in this case, right? But they are really getting a lot better at kind of tracking what are the related terms that are growing and what they call the breakout terms. And so there's some cool trend exploration stuff that's starting to pop up. And Google Trends has a big coronavirus site now too that is not just disease trends, but consumer trends and what's changing and what's popping up that's new. So I think they're really starting to understand that just looking at that line that went up or down, that's not nearly enough. Like people want to
Sure.
know like what else is going on. And so there's tools coming, but definitely like dig into Google Trends if you haven't been there in a while. And I don't get any money from them, kind of the opposite. So
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to
they
check
only
that out.
cost me money.
Seen that updated version yet. That's interesting. Did get another question. Jared was asking, let's talk schema. Are there any stats to share with clients to show its effectiveness? Many IT and departments don't want to do it.
Yeah, so I may be the wrong person to ask because I think we kind of sometimes over-index on schema. I guess my fear is this: sometimes people who are already doing schema, that's their thing, and so they implement every schema they can, regardless of whether it has any impact on the SERPs. And there's only a handful that have impact, and some things are good for structure. I think honestly, it's not even big data. It's really just show them what it looks like. Show them what having that schema. And the best thing you can do is either, hey, here's a SERP where we have it, some kind of display. Maybe it's FAQ links, and you got to measure whether those are effective. But let's say FAQ links. Hey, we have those and the competitor doesn't. Or usually more effectively, hey, here's a SERP you care about where the competitor has the schema and we don't. And that's, I don't know why, but that's usually the one that tries. Like, what? Like, let's show those guys. So I sometimes just that one screenshot or two makes so much more different than, yeah, exactly. FOMO rules.
Perfect. Exactly. Another question, Andrew asked, I remember you were doing some research into people also ask at MouseCon last year. Do you have any top insights you could share from that research, maybe regarding
I
CTR?
wish we had a tool or something we got off on that. That research, so the research was people were sending me questions and topics, and I was trying to generate related questions by mining people also ask. It turns out that's really powerful. And actually, I think something like just from MozCon, over 200 people requested data, and we found data for basically everybody. So it's really powerful because PAs are on like 80–90% of SERPs. They're just all, at least in our, for high volume terms. So I think it's a data mining tool for Google. I think they're trying to understand intent. I will say this, CTR on the questions themselves, I think is generally pretty bad. This is not something you're trying to rank for to get that click till they open it and you're the third one and you get that. That's going to be pretty bad. But mining those is telling you a lot about what people are asking around that topic. And so, we're trying to get into some tools. I know Answer the Public, people talk about, but even just going to some of your key terms and doing that expansion that keeps going and seeing what people, Google is getting better. So it's really valuable data, but I don't think it's about people clicking that. I think it's about what it's telling you about what people are looking for. The only thing I'll say is that PAs, they don't seem to update very fast. I was hoping that they would be a source of like trending data. They don't really seem to be. They're kind of outdated for the most part. So I hope they improve that. But yeah, they can tell you a ton about what people care about around a term.
That's an interesting kind of peek behind the curtain of what they find to be beneficial or useful for that subset of demographic. How
It's
bizarre.
one of the very rare features that has no intent connection, no clear. It's not like featured snippets and informational intent, really tightly tied, right?
Sure.
You're asking a question, and you would think that what people also ask, but it's everywhere. And so I really do believe it's a data mining tool. I think Google is saying, hey, we don't really understand your intent. We don't really know what you're looking for. We're going to see what you click on. So
interesting. It's always really fascinating whenever I think about like some of these different features and stuff that they add in, and I'm like, how many times did I use that? What did I actually thinking back of like how it is functioning is
hard to like objectively look at your own behavior. When people are like, how often do you click on ads? I'm like, I never click on ads. What do you think I am? I'm like, no, probably
an
like
ad?
Probably like 10% of the time. Who knows? I'm probably clicking ads all the time.
All right, we got another question here coming in from Jared. He says, crazy question time. How could one uncover trending searches over the last X amount of weeks and get search volume instead of the weird numbers that we get from Google Trends?
I don't know. I haven't found it because you're right. Trends are, we've tried to cross-reference trends to volume, and it's not
Weird.
linear
Doesn't make
or
sense.
anything. Yeah, it's really just, it's not, unless you're directly comparing, you can't even say like 90 is better than 80. Like, unless they're on the same chart, doesn't mean anything. It's totally scaled to the realm of the term. So yeah, it's crazy. And I'll tell you, it's frustrating for us because search volume data is hard to produce. And for all of us, I'm not going to speak to competitors, but I guarantee there's only so many ways to get it. It lags. You know, it is not, we're always trying to figure out like what are new terms and get that data. Search volume just naturally lags. And even in AdWords, it's not a real time thing, right? They're always processing historical data. They probably have it faster than anybody else, but yeah, it's challenging. I think you have to look at relative terms. You know, you have to look at terms you know and compare them directly in the trend, but to make that produce a number, yeah, trend is really hard to scrape too. I'm I'm not saying I'm doing it right now, but Google's not real friendly about that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine they would be.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Well, awesome. I think that just about wraps it up. Not seeing any additional questions coming in. Pete, we super appreciate you hopping on. I know you're crazy busy with everything you guys got going on over there at Moz and all of the madness that's
Playing
happening.
Legos behind the curtain. That's really all
I
I'm
know
doing.
that's really what the curtain was for. It was just to hide.
I'm mostly managing the Zoom calls of my kids.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. Guys, again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any more questions for either of us, be sure to hit us up on Twitter. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thanks again.
Everybody. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for coming in. See you guys.